What's going on, everyone? In today's episode of Understanding ICT Concepts, we're going to be talking about mastering the Fibonacci retracement tool. So these are the 5 Fibonacci retracement tool templates that I use, and I'm going to show you guys how to use them and exactly what they mean and everything you need to know about them pretty much. So starting off with quarters, if you watched my latest fair value gap video, the part 2, the advanced, you'll know what the quarters are. Simply they are each quartile of a fair value gap. So this would be your 0 to 25% area, 25 to 50% area, 50 to 75% area, and 75 to 100% area. That's basically what it is. Very simple. And here are the settings for it right here. Equilibrium or your premium and discount, very simple, just a 50% of your given move or wherever you decide to place it. Here are the values for it right here. 0, 0.5, and 1. OTE, optimum trade entry, as well as equilibrium, I have added right here as well. These are the two ones that you want to note, 0.168 and 0.781, and this is just equilibrium. TGIF, thank God it's Friday. This is your 20 and 30%. I'll explain a little bit more on this later. And this is your standard deviations. So this is your 100%, 200%, 300%, 400%, and 150, 250, 350, and 450%. I'll show you guys exactly how to utilize them. And alright guys, so I'm going to do pretty much all of this on the hourly and the 15-minute chart, but same thing applies on every other chart. First up is we have our quarters. So if I was to draw this fair value gap right here, we can see if we were to do our quarters like this, quarters, we can see that we touched that 75% standard deviation perfectly to the tick, right? If I do that pretty much perfectly, we pretty much tick that 75%. I did it the opposite way, but 75% of that, which tells us that we are going to see deeper retracements, and that is exactly what we see since we came all the way down into that. And here once again we'll use our equilibrium and our optimum trade entry right here, and we can see since we came down into this lower part of the fair value gap, the 75% or the last quartile of the fair value gap, by just a tick, by just a little bit, we can see that made us have this deeper retracement once we made this swing high back into a discount and back into optimum trade entry, as you guys can tell right through here. And this is exactly where we bounced off of. Even if we had no fair value gap, this was because of optimum trade entry right here. And as for TGIF, it's basically thank God it's Friday, and it basically states that at the end of every month or at the end of every week, you're gonna see price retrace 20 to 30% of the whole candle movement on a Friday. Usually it happens Friday or Thursday, whatever makes the high of the week or high of the month, and that is when you are going to see this 20 to 30% retracement, and that leaves you with this upper wick part of the move. And same applies for a bearish candle. You can see we had a TGIF right here perfectly on that 30% mark, perfectly to make this bottom wick. Now, it doesn't happen every single week, but it is very common. Jumping down into this 15-minute time frame, and this is where we're going to be looking at our standard deviations. So I'm going to clear out all of these drawings, and right here we do our standard deviations off the breaker blocks, and we can see this is a clear breaker block right here because we have a high, a low, a high, a lower low, sweeping liquidity right here. All right, we sweep this liquidity right here, creating our 15-minute breaker block. If we draw our values from that 15-minute breaker block, we see that this is our first zone of rejection, which is a 2 to 2.5 zone right here. Right, this is where we reject it, and we come down into a discount off of this 2 to 2.5 range right here. You can see we come right back into a discount, and I believe OTE as well. Yep, OTE as well right here after coming into the discount, before continuing up to our 4 standard deviation level eventually. But before I do point that out, I do want to point out that if we do not end up getting a close above the 2.5 standard deviation level, most likely we are not reaching for 4. But if we do decide to come up over here, we can see that off this 4 standard deviation level we had a really deep retracement. And if we want to go from this swing low to this swing high right here, we can see once again we have touched into a discount, and we have touched into optimal trade entry or optimal trade entry. And you can also note that equilibrium will act as support, and in this case price just wanted to come down into this very little discounted part of that fair value gap, as well as if you want to use this breaker block as something, we can use this breaker block as something as well. Whoops. This breaker block as something as well, and you can exactly see that we have rejected this fourth standard deviation off of this breaker block as well. As you can tell, we swept this liquidity, and this liquidity right here, high, low, high, lower low, higher high, breaker block, and our fourth standard deviation. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video.